The U.S. is like the separation of church and state is in our Constitution, but we are a Christian country.
I never wanted to be on this side of the camera.
We're all a villain for someone. I do think rocks are people.
Here's my take on your photography.
Can we just say f*** NFTs?
I'm Brittany, bitch.
I'm gonna regret saying this.
It was like a catch and release sort of thing.
Like some sort of like the
beauty
Paris,
filter?
Yeah, beauty filter. Oh my god, put like the cat face
Let's
on.
talk about how much we hate beauty
Let's talk
filters.
about beauty filters.
Hello. Okay, it's good.
Okay.
Taylor, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Great to be here.
We're on a podcast together.
This is fun already.
What did you do last night?
We talked about talking about this
before
talking about it.
I thought it would be fun.
I did do something. This is going to make me look good. I have friends. And I went over to a friend's house with other friends and we watched Miyazaki's first film, Nausicaa. And it was amazing. I had never seen it.
I've never seen it. That was his first film?
I was told that yesterday. I don't know that that's true, but I'm pretty sure it is. And apparently it was he took the most time to develop it. It was the first film that he had artistic control over. So I think maybe it was his second film, but it was just aesthetically beautiful. And it had this amazing 80s soundtrack.
Ooh, I love 80s.
Yeah, it really fit the vibe of the scenes that it was in. There were these large bugs that had lots of eyes that turned red when they were angry. And there was like 80s synth arpeggios. It was really good.
I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah.
His work is just absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
Princess Mononoke.
Mononoke.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's quite similar to that and just in addressing environmental issues and being fantastical and having a hot female lead character.
That's great. I love that.
I mean, I love that too. Why not? It works.
Yeah.
Carry the story along.
Yeah, there's something really playful about the worlds that he creates. Like they're super wild, but they're also like inviting and like there's a softness there too.
Yeah, and the aesthetic. It's like he really has in both of those films, Princess Mononoke and Nausicaa, he has like a female protagonist who's an absolute badass, which actually was quite radical at the time. Like that they're warriors and many different sides of what like femininity is considered to be or not considered to be, but also that there was a female antagonist. Like there was like the scary evil industrialist in both was also a woman. So I think that's interesting because he kind of, I mean, I still hear people be like, women should run the world. Oh, this might be one of those sentences I regret. But I think it's extremely dangerous to gender like evil or evil actions. And it can become easy when we live in a world that's dominated by male control. So then one of the opposite reactions is we just put women in power. And I think it's much more complicated than that. And he illustrates that well. I
just had Dustin Matthews on the show.
Dustin!
Yeah. He shared something on Instagram, which I loved. It was a quote or whatever. But I was talking about how heroes and villains are really like two sides of the same coin. In fact, the same thing might have happened to them in life, but they choose to go about it differently. So they're both like fighting for the same thing. It's just one is like vengeful and, you know, it's like contrived. The other one's like trying to help others. But I thought that was like really interesting, actually.
I think it can be. I think it's always more interesting to redefine something that has been categorized as like the enemy.
Well, I feel like villains are always the ones that we like are like way more relatable and nuanced.
Yeah.
I think about like in the original Die Hard. What's that guy's name?
My God, it's been a long time since I saw that.
Okay. But he's so good. He's just like cringe. Like I remember he tries to pretend that he's one of the captives. He's like, please don't hurt me. And then, you know, in the next scene, he like pulls out a gun. And, you know, he's like, but I loved that, you know, it like played to like human sensibilities.
It's interesting. It reminds me of why people like Trump.
Oh,
I'm not gonna go any direction in that. Just like a lot of the responses are actually about like, I like his jokes that he made, or like, I like the way he said fuck you to like this establishment. And I'm like, okay, like a charismatic villain in his own right.
Yeah.
Villain, maybe. I mean, I am not a fan of Trump, but I actually do think that he is a very interesting case study for me in looking at like why people like different people. But no, like there was this 15-year-old that was like, I liked his jokes. And I'm like, cool. Like, no. I mean, I think it's interesting. Like there are like, and there are villains and stories that I'm like, man, nice outfit, dude. Like, nice outfit.
Played it well.
Yeah. I don't know. We're all a villain for someone.
That's true. It's a little heartbreaking, but it's true.
It is true. I think it's worse to be a villain for someone than to be like the one that's the victim.
Huh. Wait. Say that again. You said it's worse?
I think it's harder in an interpersonal way to be the villain.
Yeah.
And know that you have like hurt someone or something than to be the one that gets hurt.
No, I think you're right. Because it implies that if something was in your control, like you could have stopped it. Or like if only you were different.
Or maybe it's like you have the responsibility of that.
Yeah. I
think that's scary. I think like the responsibility of that is scary. And I think the responsibility of destruction in any way is scarier than being the thing that's destroyed. But like, I think that, they're like two parts of the same thing, which is horrifying.
If you're like harvesting a crop, like you're the villain to those family of mice.
And you made the active choice to do it.
Yeah.
And versus having something done to you, you didn't necessarily choose for that to happen to you, but then you have to respond to it. So I think like the responsibility of having made the active choice is a real thing, and it freaks me out.
Yeah.
Like I recently cut down some trees for the purpose of building something, and I could have bought them at the store and not felt the responsibility of having killed the things, but I would still be responsible for the things having been killed. But I think I feel more something, maybe sadness or gratitude or responsibility for like taking the life of a thing that was the home of so many other things and that took a long time to like, but because I was much closer to it.
Yeah.
I personally, for myself, am going to plant the same number of trees, either in the same area or in a different area, depending on how I can get access. But this particular place was planted as a plantation of white pine trees. White pine isn't even native to Iowa. Not that I'm a nativist for plants. I'm not. Things move around. But they were planted in the 40s for the purpose of being harvested for a paper mill. And this paper mill was getting different counties to plant plantations of pine for them. And the paper mill is long gone. And this pine forest that's overgrown but still beautiful is there. And so that's where we went. And so it's kind of like it was a timber stand improvement, and there are ways to make that space even more habitable to more beings. And so that's what's considered to be improvement, where it's like it's thick and brambly and light doesn't come through between the branches and things, but still it's killing things that are, to me, in one worldview, very alive, to make them something that's dead. Yeah,
you're like thinning the herd for
yourself. Yeah, for yourself. Everything is selfish and it's terrible. Like other indigenous cultures and other peoples have had stronger ideas around what you can do for that, and our world doesn't as much. And then everything just seems contrived. So it's like I could pretend that I was, it's like a meta life.
It is.
Being too aware of the weird things just makes everything seem like a video game.
Yeah, consciousness is kind of a blessing and a curse.
It's mostly a curse.
Mostly a curse, yeah.
Like I think mid-level consciousness is mostly a curse. Like you like think you see a lot, but it looks like entropy. But if maybe you saw more, you'd be like, oh, those things are connected. But you only see like partial.
Yeah. We were just watching 7 Years in Tibet again.
Dude, I love that. I love that movie. I
do
do. Brad Pitt.
I know. Who doesn't love Brad Pitt?
What a mountaineering Brad Pitt with a hot Tibetan girlfriend, wife. Seriously.
It's great.
Yeah.
Even his like semi-terrible accent.
Terrible. Is it supposed to be Austrian or something?
Yeah.
Or German? No, I think
He's
Austrian.
like the Himalayas.
I know. Oh my God. No, I could get over it.
Yeah. But in that movie, because they're building a temple and, you know, they're weeding through like all the soil to pull out all the worms so that when they do the foundation, it'll be like not. But yeah, I think when it comes to nature, it's like there's got to be like a 1-to-1. Like if you take, you got to give something back.
That's what a lot of people say. And like molecularly, that's what makes sense. Energy exchange type things.
But
although, I mean, I'm not really like I actually have this very strong dislike for extrapolating really interesting scientific evidence into like very loosely into social metaphors. It makes me want to die. Which is basically like, yeah, anyway, so that's a side note, but it terrifies me. It makes me nauseous. I think I am mostly tormented by the ways that my own ideas of how things should or shouldn't be or what is wrong and right torment me. And how can I, to the best of my ability, avoid extreme levels of suffering simply because it seems like a miserable way to go about in the world. Haven't figured it out. But you know, like if it, you know, like we live in a system, many different systems that force us into being complicit in levels of destruction of all sorts of beings, all the way down to rock beings. I do think rocks are people. That we just don't have as individuals control over in the moment. You know, we're not and that, but we're part of it. And I read this one quote by this a long time ago by Derek Jensen, who is brilliant, but then kind of went off the rails in certain ways. But he started the Deep Green movement and he wrote a bunch of books. He was is pro like violent protest of environmental issues, which I thought was really interesting and ultimately don't align with. But I think it's really good for people to think about, like, what does it mean to respond to destruction with destruction. Similar thing of like this guy Karl Popper's looking at the ideology of tolerance. Like if you have a tolerant culture, inevitably do you have to be intolerant of intolerance? It's a trap. Like it's a trap. But this guy Derek Jensen basically said, like, you're sitting on the toilet, you have like your option, you have a toilet and the waste of your body goes into this water and it goes into a system and you sit on it. And the way that the option that you have is to take the toilet paper and wipe your butt, the toilet paper, which is dead trees. And if you're upset about that, the only option that you really have is tearing down the system that sets it up that all of us use toilet paper, not to not use toilet paper yourself. And I was like 18 when I read that. And I was really, really angry. Probably not about toilet paper. I don't know. I'm rambling about it. But like, you know, like the torment of each day of like making these choices that we think we're responsible for. Like that responsibility, I think, is much more complicated than the responsibilities that we've been talking about. Because it's like a web. Just the distinction between like what is an individual entity and what is the space between and what is the other. But I would make a plug for ants and termites and eusocial insects that also are actually way better at cooperative group work and building than humans are. Like bald-headed wasps that build those beautiful like paper nests, and each line of color is from a different wasp. And so, but like the same color in different parts of this actually quite complex sphere is built by the same wasp. So they're going to a bunch of different trees and they like bite the bark and then they roll it up in their mouth. but they're going all at different times, and they're all working at the same time on this net. So each time the wasp comes back, it has to build at a slightly different spot with its piece, which is actually like very advanced building. I don't think that a lot of contractors could get their workers to do that. Yeah. I'm just saying.
No, I mean, that's
I feel
incredible.
like you get like...
Yeah. It's not like ants are running around with like, one's got a Rolex, the other one's got, because we're so skewed, like egotistically. But then we'll do things like, I don't know, Elon's got all the satellites running around Earth. It's like, we can't even retract that, I don't think, at this point. It's probably just a system that's going to be there forever. It might be like space dust or junk at some point. But
it will be junk and space dust at some point, inevitably. I'm not the biggest fan of Elon Musk. I think that the form, there's a historian called Jill Lepore, and she actually says it much better than I could. But basically, his form of innovation, it's not innovation, it's imperialism. Yeah. It's not that interesting. And it has the same social issues and potential outcomes that I'm more concerned with than I am with like what new technology is being created. It is intoxicating. Technological innovation is intoxicating. And it's like the drug of choice for Western modernity. And it's really, I mean, I oscillate between like being just so into it and then ripping myself out of that. And I don't know, for me, more and better tech still has the same like stench of what it has always had, which is inequality and egotism and lots of things that I'm not a fan of.
Yeah.
No. I don't know how to fix it, but where this was going before was actually that like we're just stuck. I think, I mean, not stuck, but like we are hurtling somewhere with all of these components. And I certainly don't think there's any sort of inevitability about it, but there's a directionality. Like there's a directionality, like in physics, when people talk about, it's like the arrow of time. Like you can't go backwards, but you're spiraling. And technically, like as you go around, you can come closer to like you're much like going forward and around, you're much closer to something way back when, but it's slightly different. And so I think that's interesting, just this idea, like I despise back to the anything movements. Fuck back to the land movement, sorry. Sorry, I just think it's delusional. I think it's like a creepy romanticization of the past as well. Lots of opinions.
I love these opinions. Like, I think your take on Elon's spot on. I'm kind of a tech person myself, and I do get kind of enamored by like the new stuff. It's so cool, But at the same time, I think you're spot on, and it's like all these advancements. I don't actually see how they're improving one's quality of life necessarily, and in a big way, I mean, that's my feeling about like social media. It's just like, great, we're like quote unquote more connected than we've ever been, smartphones, but they're so obnoxious.
I agree with you, but I also have just been kind of like trying to chip away at every single judgment on both sides of things for myself, not successcally. It's not like I am a non-judgmental being, like, behold, but
I want you to break it down for me. Yeah, well, how do you do that?
Because it's like I'll be sitting on a bus or somewhere in public, and I'll be looking at someone looking at their iPhone, and I'll be like, everyone's looking at their iPhone. Right. But the thing is, it's like the actual form of that is basically you're taking your attention away from the physical space that you're in to take in information from media. That still was happening with books and newspapers.
Like
and you could still ignore your partner in the morning over coffee by reading the newspaper. Like, I know that. Right. And so in ways, I like blame technology less now, because I think that becomes a dead end, and it's not actually an answer, and it deflects from the complexity of that thing. There's a really great book by one of my favorite historians. He wrote a book about cod, the history of cod on the East Coast, but in the Atlantic. But he also wrote this book called Paper. His name, Mark Kurlansky. Mark Kurlansky.
Okay.
I'm terrible with names, but I remember that one. And he wrote a book on the history of paper, which actually ends up being a really interesting look at the history of technology. And he has this 2-page diatribe in the beginning about the switch from oral traditions to written traditions, and how when people started writing things down, everybody was really worried about that shift. But also he pointed out that actually it is true that when you when you store information in a physical object, your brain actually does offload. Your brain says, like, I don't need to keep this in my head. And it offloads it here. And I think I do a lot of that with a computer too. It's like I'm externally storing a lot of things. And so my brain doesn't work as hard. I mean, that's just an experience. It's not like certified evidence. But he goes on to talk about like how the Luddites, who were people that were weavers, and they started to get replaced by mechanized weaving, mechanized looms. They got that name. I mean, the term Luddite is just basically someone who doesn't like new tech, and those people went and smashed the new looms that had replaced them in their workplace. And he points out that like the Luddites may have been targeting the wrong thing. Like it wasn't the object of innovation that was their enemy. It was that humans chose to replace other humans with a machine. The humans chose to use the tool in a way that made it such that those people didn't have work. And I think that's still happening. It's like the ways that we relate to our technology it's a human function. It's the tool, the hammer or the jackhammer or the satellite, or like we have manifested those. So I don't know where that leads us, but I very much align with that idea. And I actually think it helps me to not like hate all the objects around me as much as I could.
I liked what you said too about offloading. That makes so much sense, especially in the world of art, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, man, feeling something here, gotta like offload it.
Yeah. Like move it out, move it through.
Yeah.
Art. We can talk about art.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about art. One thing that I've really admired about you and your Instagram is that you've been so consistent with it. Because you seem to have like this wonderful relationship to like your creating and sharing process. What's that like for you?
Cool. Yeah, I mean, thanks. It's funny, Instagram. I actually think that that's a really interesting example of like pathways that are available to us at any given time and how it opens up or constricts. Photography is a weird thing for me because I really love it, but ideologically, like I never sat down and was like, what would be so cool is if I was a photographer. It just kind of like crept up, and so I just, that's the
coolest kind of photography in my opinion.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I'm always fascinated by people's stories about how they ended up in their careers. Mostly because I've never been able to find a career.
Cheers to that.
So yeah, cheers. Super cool. Yeah, 35 and careerless. I mean, for a long time I was like, fuck careers. It's a product of the modern system. But then I was also like, but
I know.
I don't know how to not be in the. So yeah. So I mean, I'm very envious of people that have work that they
get paid for.
That they get paid for. Work that they get paid for. And it's more that I actually envy the emotional and intellectual aspect of people that found work that they are excited to pursue. And it doesn't have to be some sort of groundbreaking thing.
Yeah.
But they like the people that they work with, or some little piece of what they're working on, just like, and I've experienced that with hobby. Oh, I don't like the word hobby. I don't have any hobbies.
Good.
Because our world is structured in that things that are given value are the things that you do for work or for money. And I know people that have reoriented and kind of pushed back on that, but it's hard, and you have to make money. And also there's a certain like gravitas to the act of working in the way that life is structured. So I always envy people that have like, they grew up and they were like, I want to be a doctor.
I know.
And then they like become a doctor. So and then they like read these textbooks on like the electrical signals of the heart, and they're like, wow, this is so cool. I'm going to go save someone's heart. And then they go do it. And obviously that's like a certain percentage of the population. And then I also really envy people that are like, yeah, I have this job that's like really hard, but I love it. And I, either they're like, and I make enough, or like I get paid a lot for it. I don't even know how it happened. Just one day someone was like, do you want to do this thing? And then I did it. And then a few years later, and I loved it. And then a few years later, someone else was like, but do you want to do this thing? And then I did it and I loved it. And I'm like, cool. So life just happened to you and it's great. Anyway,
but
I was talking about photography.
No,
yeah.
What did you say? It doesn't feel like photography, or like you didn't pick up?
I didn't choose it. I didn't actively choose it, which I think is cool.
Yeah,
I think it's cool, and I think we're told a lot of the time, like, choose your. This is where that tangent was going. Or
wait, so maybe it fell on your lap, like
yeah,
that
but it's also like
with the career.
It's not my career. I'm not like a professional photographer, but it is something that I have done consistently out of like the joy of the discovery of that. And I think that is really precious, and almost a compulsion, like a compulsion to not create, but like frame and find and discover, has refined a process of looking for myself in a really gentle way.
Yeah.
And I can look way back. I can look at my old photos and be like, haha. Like, I was recently down in Tucson and some of the first images that I ever got printed, digital images after high school, were of cacti in Tucson. And they're really bad.
Objectively bad, or
no? I think they're bad. I think they're bad. But it was fun to be back and be like, I'm going to be taking pictures of the same objects 12 years later, 14 years later. And it was fun to do that. And I took some almost identical, but like slightly different images. And I was like, cool, you've evolved like this much. That's cool.
Like, here's my take on your photography. Can I say that?
Do it.
Well, I was trying to put a finger on it. I was like, what actually just came to mind as we're talking, you have like this street style photography for nature.
Oh my, I love that description. Yeah. Actually so much. Thank you.
Cool. No, you're welcome. I mean, I think that's true though, isn't it? Kind of rugged and like shooting from the hip, like in a cool way, like in the Westerns.
Cool. In the Westerns.
But like, I get that sense when I see your photography. It's like, there's something kind of wild about it.
Cool. Well, I mean, that was all very kind. And I actually do. I think it's really interesting what you brought up about this. I love that description, street photography for nature, because actually it kind of hooks into some of the things we've been talking about in the sense of, like, I'm really not into the dichotomous idea of like human culture and nature and humans outside of nature, in a very broad sense, in like absolutely kind of like trash fashioning animals and nature, like trash fashion photography. Like, I've been really into it.
I noticed too, like, because I like to shoot film, and so like,
I know, I'm so jealous.
But you've got that in your digital space too, because I was gonna mention like light leaks and stuff. The more kind of rugged and broken my camera is, the better. Yeah. And you had those like chromatic aberration type stuff on your lenses a little bit. I feel like there was a period where like you had that in like all of your shots. Yeah. But it was so cool.
Yeah, I go through that. Yeah, I mean, I totally am. The evolution of technology in relation to art, and specifically photography, I think is a really interesting intersection, because techie photographers, or I would say amateur techie photographers, are all about like the resolution capabilities and the speed of catching the thing, and like, oh wow, but that bird is so clear in that picture. And it's like, well, but that picture is a bad picture. I mean, subjectively, so, you know, just ways of seeing are separate from some sort of objective quality of a technological thing. And so with photography, I love that about it, because you are utilizing always tech. You're not a painter. I love painting. I think it's incredible. Like, I still think painting is like, I mean, your dad's an amazing painter. Love his work. Painting this is another conversation. Maybe we'll get to it. But like, companies that are putting out the tech, they push representations of reality really hard. Like, you can capture this even better now. But what I think is really fascinating is like, art has never been purely, it's had its moments of being representational and like, oh wow, this person drew that building so well, that's so impressive. But it's been so much more about now I'm going to make a sweeping statement about what art is about.
Cool.
Other ways of seeing and representing or speaking through different languages, emotions, experiences of reality, and just a different lens than the literal. And what I think is most interesting about that now is that on the science end, what we see is not the shared reality. It's not like the complex, multi-layered shared reality. And we know that. We know that we don't physically see infrared light. Bees see it. And so it's a delusion that a camera by which human eyes are going to see the light that we can see, that the camera is going to capture for us the reality. And yet we're taking in information in a lot of different ways beyond what our eyes can see. And so I think that in a way, we understand multidimensionally many interesting realities that we don't visually see, and that sometimes visual representations that aren't literal are more true to different versions of what we see but we don't see. And so this obsession with like precision is just boring to me, and therefore light leaks and different things are more interesting. They're not fake. And even if they were fake, if it brings a moment of joy and interest, I'm more interested in that. Yeah.
To me, it felt like it added a layer of serendipity to the work. Not only did the bird fly in at the right time, but then the light leak complemented.
Cool.
So it was just like another multiplier for synchronicity. I love that. Like, getting thrifty about it is so much more fun than the newest stuff.
In a lot of the rest of my life, I've been like all about natural materials and just thinking about how to decouple from the systems, very unsuccessfully, tormentedly trying to figure it out and not figuring it out. But with photography, the way that I photograph, I could not do it on film. I have to take so many shots to find the one that I see in my head from what I'm looking at. And I would not be able to do that if I had 3 chances to do it. And I've tried that. I've tried to like pare it down and make, and the thing is like the excess of digital photography for me allows me to do the process that works for me.
Cool.
And so I like have to accept that. I have to accept it. And I kind of love that the light never becomes fully materialized. I talked about this with your mom, actually.
Oh, really?
Good conversation.
Oh, cool.
That the power of image is now translated through electricity and reproduced on a screen and then goes into the mind. And I sort of love the idea of them never becoming objects.
They never become objects.
Just never gets printed.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Just never gets printed.
Yeah, right.
And yet, but those images do sometimes make an impression of a memory. They make an impression. Someone might not remember the photo perfectly, but they remember that something about it they liked or it touched them. And I actually think that process it's very intangible, but it's interesting. And in a way, I also think it's like anti-material. In its most radical sense, it's anti-material. But I mean, it's not really. It's using coal to send signals through wires very inefficiently. So, but yeah, so the digital realm has been an interesting one for me. And there was like a lot of bias against it when it was newer. In the 90s and the early 2000s, and now it's just like, let's sell NFTs, like this really shitty digital video for thousands of
I know, that's
dollars.
disgusting. I can't stand that.
Can we just say fuck NFTs?
Yeah, fuck NFTs.
Can I swear on this?
Yeah, of course you can. So, do you like always have your camera on you? Because that seems like what the style is. Yeah.
Yes, and for a long time, and I really miss it. I broke my telephoto lens kind of at the same time that my beautiful, shitty Canon T5i that I had forever. The first DSLR camera that
I love that camera.
Yeah, it's a good camera. So I had an iPhone and I didn't have a camera for a long time. And then I finally was able to I bought that Canon. Shout out to Best Buy 0% interest for 24 to 48 months. This is how you get gear. Can we get sponsored for this?
I wish. Yeah, if it helped pay the bills,
let's
that'd be awesome.
send it in. Anyway, no, but if I look back, I actually think it's a really interesting principle. My own art production was incredibly responsive and dependent upon what tools I had at the time. And so once I had a DSLR, I was able to take much better pictures. And once I was smart enough to get a nice lens, the images were way nicer, in my opinion. They captured more color. And then once I got a telephoto, I was taking pictures of completely different things because I could get myself there. And then once my telephoto broke, I was not taking pictures of those things because it didn't make sense. And so the ways in which like our tools do at least point us in different, for me, they point me in different directions. And so most recently, the last 2 years, I actually went to a Best Buy I was like, I'm going to get like a slightly nicer digital, like DSLR, maybe mirrorless, I don't know. I might like get wild, but I had some Canon lenses. So I was like, maybe I'll get another Canon. And I went in there and this salesman, this guy, it was in Des Moines. Somehow he convinced me to buy a fixed lens, 35 millimeter Fujifilm, like 100X or something. And I got home that night and I was like, they're expensive. It's like the same cost as other nice things, but they're small. Like I should have brought it in. It's in the car. But
oh, so you still have it? And do you like it?
So I got home that night and I was like, what did I just do? Like, what is this? Like, can I even put under other lenses on this? I mean, I can't. I knew that when I bought it. It's like, it's fixed. Yeah. But the cool things about it are it's actually a street camera. And Fujifilm's color is my favorite. Like the way their digital color is just, to me, it's slightly more appealing than everyone else.
And that's coming from a Canon.
It's true. And Canon was my favorite.
I thought Canon was the holy grail, but I never really messed with Fujifilm cameras.
The people say that, experts say that Fujifilm does it the best in that way. And I would have to agree. But again, I kind of, I don't dig too deep into the tech side because it's just not my nature.
But it works. So it's like a fixed lens.
It's a fixed lens. So, but what's cool about it is it's set halfway into the body of the camera, so it's very compact. So it's 35 millimeter set halfway in. But the thing that I love about it the most, and I think it's a really interesting hybrid, is that Fujifilm puts all of the buttons and knobs and adjustments on their camera like an old school film camera. So you don't have to go menu diving ever.
That's cool.
And so you can just be really adjusting the way you would. And it's also metal. It's not plastic. The actual case is metal. It feels solid. It's sturdy. And
I want to see this camera.
I mean, yeah, I love it, and it's also a certain thing. Like I'll see beautiful birds out in the country, and I, at this point in my life, not capturing them because I don't have a
this one,
telephoto.
Doesn't this have a good zoom, you said? It
has a zoom.
A little bit.
It has a little zoom.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it had a zoom for like a year. For me, this is how I learn like tech things.
I'm guilty of that
I
too.
recently discovered that, yes, you can learn a lot of things on YouTube. Yes.
It's impressive.
The Hive Mind is a whole thing. And I would argue that the we are more connected than ever idea that you brought up is like the jury is out on that. We don't really know. Like,
I don't believe it. When I say it, it kind of makes me.
But we are more exposed to other parts of the world than ever. And I think that's really brutal and horrible because you know about things that you can't fix, or you know people in places that are having that are in the middle of a war, and you can't do anything other than donate, which is great. You should donate to Ukraine. No, I mean, it's like it's like a new human dilemma to know the suffering of people so far away from you. And so we are more connected than ever in that way. And whether that is going to evolve into greater empathy and like an unexpected future, or whether it's going to just like eat away at us. I mean, I think in a lot of ways it's eating away at us right now, but we don't know the outcome of that. But I don't know where that rant came from, but Fujifilm, love this little camera. It's very light. I used to walk around with like a 5-pound telephoto lens.
Right.
It was like, I carried that with me. To get back to the question, I carried it with me everywhere. And that is how I broke it, because on one winter evening, I was driving on North B Street, which is a actually dangerous winter road. It always ices over. And I had my camera with me, probably tossed in the back seat in my truck, and I saw a grouse. Actually, a pheasant. I saw a pheasant. And it was like evening light, like bright blue winter colors, and like it was flying over the road. And so I slammed on the brakes and I opened my door to get out and get my camera, and my lens just fell out onto the cement from the back seat. Yeah. And I didn't catch that bird, and I never again caught any birds with that lens, that very expensive lens.
Yeah, man, you can spend so much money on a lens too. And but then like sometimes the weight and the size of it is like prohibitive for exactly that reason.
Yes, I know. But I also like suffered through that, and it was worth it. But now this thing is so light and just, it is kind of like street photography in nature. I mean, you really did nail it. At least the recent stuff, cool. It's like a street camera. It really is.
I'm so curious. I really want to check it out. But you're kind of inspiring me again, because I haven't really picked up a camera much in the last year or two, to be honest. And it was funny because the way it found me, I don't know if it was like 4 or 5 years ago, I kind of picked it up in a seriously fun way. But it kind of saved my life. I was like in a real funk and depression. And I remember reaching out to a buddy, Ace Boothby. Shout out.
Shout out to Ace Boothby. Great photographer.
Great photographer.
Yeah. Good style too. Good style. Influencer maybe.
Influencer.
Low-key influencer.
He influenced me because I saw he was doing some cool stuff with 35 millimeter, and he was kind of
some large format too, right?
Now he shoots mostly medium format, which is awesome.
Yeah. Sorry, but go on. Yes, cool stuff.
But yeah, so he was the one that kind of got me inspired to pick up the 35 millimeter camera. Yeah. My mom's dad, grandfather, like had the pass me down 35 millimeter and
family heirloom.
I still have it, but it doesn't fire anymore. But that's how I got started. But it quite literally saved me. I needed that. I was like not plugging in socially. Yeah. It's awkward. I was just eating shit, to be honest with you.
Been there.
This was like this wonderful entry back into normal life, quote unquote. But that I could, because I started just being like, okay, here's my experience, but I'm going to like try to elevate or like add to the conversation. And it wasn't with words. It was just taking photos of people. And so I had like 2 years that was just like extreme. I don't know. I shot like 100 rolls, and I got kind of addicted to just like seeing them get processed.
Yeah.
But it was very much trying to add to the conversation of other people in ways that I didn't feel I was equipped with, like in my words, you know, like back then it was not about a podcast or talking with people. I was terrified by myself. Even my thoughts and ideas, I was like, these are shit. Like no one, like, you know, but, so that's like how my creativity and expression came out. Cause like over time it kind of morphed. It's like, I'm using cameras. This is awesome.
Yeah.
But it's funny cause video, it's like the same thing. We just shot like 100,000 photos. That's all. You know?
Yeah.
You know? So it's interesting.
I also relate to photography is both an addiction and a savior. I'm going to regret saying this. It's one of the most pure forms of expression because you take what you're looking at, exactly what you're looking at, and you reproduce it exactly if you want to. And what that does is the message is where you've put your attention and the quality of your attention. And
I love that.
And I've always found that to be really interesting because that is a very powerful language if it's readable. And it's the language of light, which is so corny.
I love
you know,
that,
like
yes.
light is the only universal constant. It is actually the only thing that we know of that if someone far away measures the speed of it and someone here measures the speed of it, it's not affected by black holes or space-time or anything. Whereas geographically we would be. It's a constant. It's just a really interesting material. If you think about the materiality of photography, it's light. It's not objects. It's the way that light interacts with objects. And so it's a worthy pursuit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so great.
Fuck Elon Musk.
I love it. We're going to keep it in.
I mean, yeah, sorry. I'm sorry, tech bros. I support you if you're one of them, but like...
Yeah, it's a little heavy-handed. It's too much. Not you, him.
Just worth critiquing.
It is.
Worth critiquing and pulling apart and looking at.
Yeah.
Let's talk about I'm kind of curious. I want to hear more about and we can compare and contrast, the process for you of finding an image. Like your photographic process. I'm just going to qualify it a little bit. I very much don't relate to being a studio photographer, although I think that's really cool because with that, you at least somewhat have to build up a world with choices that you make of where you place things. So you're building something. And that's not my strong suit in the photographic realm. Outside of a studio practice, it's like finding and capturing, or is it for you? And like, how has that process evolved? You work a lot more with humans. I find that to be really hard. The human. I mean, I actually have come to love portrait photography a lot more than I used to. And I think it's related to me like embracing humans and all of their evils and stupidities and just like really being into a lot. But it's been really foreign to me. So humans, photographing humans, finding an image, studio photography. Oh my gosh. Those are all the things.
I love all these questions. We're here in the studio. I have backdrops and lights, and I almost never, if at all, do that. And it's cool because it strikes me as like magic, you know, if you get the lighting just right, you dial it all in. Sometimes it can really pop, artificially pop. And there's something cool about that. But I've never been so prone to like setting it up. That's why I kind of gravitate towards street, because if it's there, it's there. I like that moving around in relation to what's already there. So I like that dance a lot more than putting more things in. And I feel like if you are going to put more things in, it's got to work. It's got to add more than what you're just putting in. Otherwise, it strikes me as contrived and obnoxious and flashy or whatever it is.
I mean, that's part of why I actually really appreciate quality fashion photography, because that shit's hard.
It's so hard.
You know, like that I can't, like, commission style, like, we need you to do, I can't do that.
No.
I mean, but yeah. So
and it brings stress too, because like I remember at a certain point when I like really needed to make money and I was like, shit, what am I gonna do? And I was like, yeah, I'll be a portrait photographer. And I was like,
been there slightly.
Yeah.
I'll be a landscape photographer and I'll go around.
I'll take real estate photography.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We can talk about the separation of like art and work for money another time.
But it's interesting because maybe you get lucky and it's a friend and they're going to go do something. They just need a headshot and you have this wonderful dynamic. Yeah. You're like, yeah, I'd love to do that. And that's still fun for me. But, if it's a stranger and maybe the chemistry just isn't jiving and you have to dial them in and get them to like, it's too much.
I can't do it. I mean, it's a skill. It's a different art form.
Yeah.
It's a different art form, putting people at ease. You can take pictures of humans. Like, I've been trying for a while and I have moments, but I have to think about them as like objects in space. I'm just like, you're like a rock over there in the landscape that's moving a little bit. And then sometimes it works.
Yeah. There's moments where I'm just like, oh my gosh, that is just so endearing. Kids like picking flowers or like someone's enjoying their ice cream or something. And it's just like this deep appreciation for the humanity in people. I like, at its best, when you're putting a camera in front of someone, it's the most artificial thing. But like, if I really connect with the love and like, I want them to see what I'm seeing in them, which is like beautiful. Yes,
I love that point. And I think that's one of the most important. Like, go on about that because because photography can allow you to show someone else how you see them.
I love this. Actually,
well, because we can't see it's actually kind of magic.
It is.
And painting can do that too, actually. A painter can do that.
Yeah.
If they want to.
I'm always impressed by painting too. Like you mentioned my dad. Shout out to my dad.
Shout out to dad.
So much more time goes into a painting and it can be so much more impressionistic or, whatever it is, growing up and kind of seeing what my dad did in all of his accomplishment. And it was a little intimidating in the sense that like, oh my God, like I don't actually believe this, but I was like, the feeling was, oh my God, it's so vast, so much time. How could I possibly do that? Painting is like so much more of like a meditation that could take 1,000 hours.
Yeah. I wish I was a painter, but I won't be. I feel like I would say that my own photographic style is I wish I was a painter, but I know that I shouldn't try to imitate painting with photography. God, but I wish that I was a painter and I know that I could never be. That's
like how my feeling. Oh my God.
That's my identity. And but I think
but it's the appreciation too of like
the
what
appreciation.
What those things,
the time scale of my attention and the ways that I want to edit and how I naturally move through the world is on the scale of snapshots. And it's like that's the process that I've evolved. And if I really, really wanted to try to be a painter, I could, and that doesn't mean I would be a good one. But it's more that I like wouldn't ultimately choose to stand or sit in front of a canvas and do that because my ways of seeing don't work that way. Maybe. I don't, we probably shouldn't restrict ourselves, but the discovery that's the other thing is it's like studio versus, and we haven't gotten through all the questions. Let's go to the next one, which is process. Studio versus not studio. To me, they're vastly different. And I mean, both are awesome. It's the interfacing with that which is always changing. You don't know what to expect. And it's like it's like digging for crystals. It's like gambling. It's that level of addiction. You don't know what's going to happen. Right, you go out, you don't know how the light's going to be. You never know what the sunset is going to be like. It can look like it's going to be an amazing sunset and it's gone in a second. It can look like nothing and suddenly you have this amazing thing for like 20 minutes. It's the unpredictability of it for me. Like the hunt. You know, walking around with Beandog, like watching her when she was in her younger years. She's old now, so she's not as much of a hunter, but like it was the process of the hunt in which she was the most alive and alert and dynamic. And then, you know, if she caught something, sorry, vegans, and ate it, including its brains, better than factory farmed beef in a bag.
Yeah, no kidding.
One fresh meal. Trade-offs, you know, trade-offs. I don't know if that's like a great exact metaphor, but there is an aspect of like, you're going hunting. Yeah. But you don't have to kill anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Having this conversation is getting me like super fired up about actually picking up the camera. Gonna get back out there?
Yeah, good.
I had this trip to Mexico, and shout out to Ace. Ace.
Third shout out or fourth when unclear?
He was like, sick, bro. Did you take a camera? I was like, no. He's like, nice move, dude. Yeah. That's what it felt like. Yeah. I was like, taking the photos, but in my mind's eye pretty much, and letting go of capturing it. It was like a catch and release sort of thing. Yeah. So that was like a new layer to the way I approach photography, but I think I'm going to come back at it.
I think it's great to do that. I actually do think that personally it's really tied to also being shared. So it's less to like put in a hard drive and keep there and say like I was there or wasn't that so great. It's both tied to being shared and also really, really tied to memory. What I end up remembering of certain past things is actually the image that I took of it, which I actually think is kind of fucked up. But also if I didn't take an image, I might not remember it at all. Bad memory.
So your mind goes to the image that you took.
Yeah, and I've actually talked to a lot of people that like an image from childhood and remembering childhood and actually realizing that you're just remembering the picture. It's kind of trippy. It's a little scary.
That is interesting.
Yeah, and so it's the relationship between imagery and memory is actually quite elastic. And so it's almost like you can manipulate memory with pictures, which is kind of magical and disturbing.
Wow. Yeah, you're making me want to like just take another look at my photos. It's true. They kind of change over time.
Yeah, so I think that's but I'm always kind of questioning. Sometimes I feel like I have a compulsion that I need to bring the camera with me. And that gets back to it's like I actually mostly always bring my camera with me always because you never know what's going to happen. And so like you want to be prepared, like you want to have the sword on your hip. And I mean, I started doing the same thing with musical things where it was like, no, like bring your iPhone with you, even though you don't really want to, or bring a recording device, or more so record this improvisation because you won't remember it afterwards. Like you won't be able to reproduce it. All of my processes are extremely technologically dependent. All of them now. Now I've been working with like sequencers and stuff in the sound world, and I'm loving it because I'm even more offloaded in the creative process. Like I'll sequence and I'll mess with all of the soundscapes and stuff, and then it's stored in there instead of like, oh, I put these chords together and then I'm going to pick up the guitar again and I'm going to play these chords if I remember the sequence. It's like I wrote in all of the like the ways that the sound moves and all the notes, and when you go back to that, it's like a notebook. It's like you go back to it and you pick up where you left off.
Yeah, it's like there's some journaling element to it.
Yeah,
archival journaling.
But the paper is a machine. I am not independent of those things now.
I suppose it's kind of like a Wizard of Oz type thing. Like what's actually going on behind the curtain is elaborate. Yeah. But then, you know, it's just presenting itself as whatever it is, an elegance. We don't see you photo dumping into Lightroom and doing all the things.
You don't want to see that. That shit's ugly. It's mostly just my computer saying, your scratch discs are full. And me being like, but what? I just deleted 2 PDFs.
Oh, that's fun.
I've been talking about myself.
No.
Process. We did talk about your process
a little bit.
Yeah. I'm curious though, like if your video process is the same as your photo process.
Oh, this is great. Like I actually didn't, it seems so obvious, but I never actually drew the correlation. You're kind of helping bringing it out.
That's what I'm here for.
I appreciate that. But
the camera therapist. Sorry,
Thank
go
you.
on.
It's needed.
A good therapist would not interrupt. Go on.
My therapist does. But
well, maybe you should think about changing.
Yeah, no, like, okay, so portrait photography, blah, blah, blah. Like people aren't seeing the conversation that it took to get there.
Yeah.
And I became very fascinated with the conversation that it took to get there. Like this process of doing a podcast is such a great stretch for me because like growing up, I think like Rodney was trying to recruit me.
Shout out to Rodney.
Rodney.
Really built a great program for a long time.
He was always trying to get me to do speech. I was mortified. No stage for me.
No theater. Not a theater boy.
Yeah, and definitely not like I never wanted to be on this side of the camera. I like being in control from the other side.
Shout out to being in control.
It's true. I'm sorry. But so this has been this wonderful journey and discovery process of like letting go. I'm not on the other side of that camera, although I planted myself there before we started recording.
You did set up some of the parameters. You still have some control.
There's a lot of control, but I'm letting go of a little bit. And I think
your therapist would say that's good.
It's
Do you think your therapist would say that's good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Being in control can be great, and letting go of control can be great too. But this is kind of where like the work kind of morphed into what it is now for me, which is like I'm still featuring people, capturing them in the best possible light.
You better be making me look good. Like I don't know how this light is edited afterwards. If not,
yeah, tweak it a little bit.
Put like some sort of like the
beauty
Paris,
filter.
Beauty filter. Oh my god, put like the cat face
Let's
on.
talk about how much we hate beauty filters.
Let's talk about beauty filters. I
don't like them.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's cruel. I think it's a weird, fucked up, like quasi-reality thing. It's another one of the reasons why I like film photography because you can scan your image and do Photoshop, but you don't want to.
No.
And like, I just think it's sad that people don't feel like they're good enough as their beautiful selves. I don't like filters. So
I do think that there's a distinction, like the act of editing, adjusting levels, and even filters, because that's like a uniform level adjuster.
Sure. Can
lead to a better representation of what the real moment was. Because the camera, so it can be that. So a lot of times when I'm editing, I'm either intentionally editing to distort it, if it's like a landscape, and we're not talking about someone intentionally editing to distort it in a way that I artistically think is interesting. Usually it's probably not stupid, or to match it to what I was seeing. Like with a sunset, almost often I'm not capturing it exactly as it was or as it felt. So like to adjust it to how it felt.
Felt is perfect.
Or to adjust it to how it was, whatever that means. That to me is different than this. There's a different thing that I think we're talking about, which is like beauty culture. And for me, I actually have been thinking a lot about one of my big like COVID goals was to just be so radical that I just went mainstream. And so I just really got into pop culture and hoodies.
I love the hoodie game.
Thanks. Yeah. It's kind of overkill. I'll probably look back on it, but I've been rocking the double hoodie.
Oh, I do too. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Nice.
So, but hoodie has its own unique history and culture.
It's got a special place in my heart.
It has been appropriated by white people, and I will acknowledge that it comes from Black American Black community, which is a beautiful thing. But anyway, so fashion is actually really cool. But mainstream media, I just hadn't been really tripping that hard on it for a long time. And somehow I was just hit with this deep sadness about how some of the actresses that I had seen in movies when I was younger, who are now in their 50s, like still look like they're 30. You basically like can't get work if you don't keep looking young. And so I was like, cool, like actually some of you look amazing, but just the act of trying to continue to look young, even if you succeed, to me was like unsettling. It was unsettling, and I was like, man, society is just like forcing us. Like the programming is so strong that like looking like you're getting older is bad.
Yeah.
And it's so not sad. Beautiful. And it's, but then for me, it's like trying to not look like you're not getting older is not beautiful.
Right.
Like aging, but not accepting aging. And I totally respect the reasons for not accepting aging. I do not have a critique of that. I myself have a lot of wrinkles already. And I'm like, I thought this wasn't going to happen until I was 50. I should have worn sunscreen. Fuck me. Getting more and more vain every year. But also on the other side, I'm like, shit, I should just embrace this because I don't want to pretend that I'm not getting older. I didn't make bad choices. Wear sunscreen, kids. Especially if you have very pale skin. But, you know, I think to me, it's like the discomfort of the resistance of inevitable change, which actually comes full circle to denying the political realities of like techno innovation. Like we can't really stop. I mean, I don't know if that's really, I actually think that's a decent connection. You cannot stop the flow of time, according to me.
I wanted to say something too about the beauty filter thing. I think I'm trying to get my...
I think it's a really interesting topic, actually.
Yeah.
I think we should keep talking about it.
Because you talked about like, well, adjusting levels to the way that it felt. The sun's totally get that. It'd be the same thing that I'm doing to this show. You know, like I've captured it. Then I'm going to go home and edit it. And I'm going to put my spin on it.
Yes.
And make it be and look and all the things that I want it to be. And I'll adjust some levels. Could be on the audio, could be on the color. Just make sure it's the way we like. And yeah, and maybe there's nothing like inherently wrong with the beauty filter per se. I think it's
where we're getting. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like that it maybe masquerades as something else.
As a personal artistic choice?
Well, it'd be one thing to be like, yeah, I shot a sunset and I went grayscale on it. I thought that was cool. And
but it probably wasn't.
Yeah, right. No. And it's like, yeah, I punched up the highlights a little bit. And this is boom. Like, this is what I was feeling. And great. Like, love it. Totally got it. But then there's this beauty filter thing, which that would assert that, hey, I used it, and I also don't want you to know that I did. And so it's like, for all the reasons that I would want to take a photo in the first place, look at the cracks in this pavement. Yeah. Look at, whatever it was, how time has done this to you, and you're this beautiful elderly woman or something. Beautiful elderly woman. Or just like whatever it is, or your beard's this way, or whatever. I don't know, but like those are like why I would pick up the camera in the first place. And so it kind of feels like someone drew a picture and then they're going to like correct it with the eraser like all over the place, and then they're like, here's the thing that I did, and I don't want you to know it took me hours, or but whatever. It's that part I think that you're taking issue with, the like, and trying to obscure, pretending that that's the real thing. And even that has its qualities of like, oh, they feel this way about their image and they want it to be awesome. So it's like it kind of endears me to them in a way. But like I just see the edit. I don't see the fluidity or the spontaneity of it, the letting go of it. That is the freedom of expression, you know?
Yeah, I also think it's interesting though, because it's like, are we talking about selfies with beauty filters, or are we talking about like anything else? Because if we're doing that, then it's really so much more about like cultural expectations and trends than it is about like the person that got the photo taken of them and beauty standards of the heteropatriarchy. Like,
right, yeah.
No, for real. I mean, so it's less individualized. Like, I think the kind of like this mass thing is interesting, but we're like looking at different parts of, which is the point of having a dialogue.
Yeah. Well, here's a question for you. It's like, when do you put the spin on it or the flair? Because that's what it is, right? It's like you've got Taylor style, and you're gonna put Taylor spin on what you're doing. Same for me or anyone else.
Yeah.
And so maybe it goes a little deeper into just like, when is the spin and the flair playing into deception as opposed to uncovering a truth?
Yeah, I think that is a great question. We are narrative creatures. Like we humans, we know because we've developed language and we can interface with each other. We tell stories in human history through mythologies and it's all a spin. And that is what I think is actually one of the most fascinating outrages of the last 15 years or 5 years is like the outrage about things having spin on them. Again, like fake news. Spin is historical. Like it's, and especially in the art realm, the relationship between like having there be a strong spin on something and then being upset that it was spun is that you had the expectation that somehow that person was telling you the truth. And I just think all of these concepts are very slippery. Like, yes, there are shared truths and experiences. And there's this term that I really love. It's called the privacy of qualia. And it's essentially that one person cannot experience the internal mind workings of someone else, supposedly, so far. I think in some ways this question around like spin and truth and where is the line and is it okay is very simply only related to expectation. So for me and my own expectation of my own production, I think the more that you can hone a recognizable spin, the better off in the world you are. I don't really care about that, but like honing a recognizable spin means that like you have a signature, like a flavor.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that everyone has it. We're meaning making machines.
Yeah, but so what's cool about photography is like the image doesn't have to mean, I think I like that about it. It doesn't have to mean anything in a literal sense.
Yeah.
And so like I always wish that I was really good at telling short stories because living in Fairfield, Iowa, goddamn, the shit I have heard at the coffee shop or from like the guy on the corner, it would be, I mean, if I was good, you know, I could just collect that. But like that literal type of storytelling that really transmits meaning. Images don't have to mean anything. They can feel like something. They can just be. You know, I think they alchemically interact with a human and just can change you a little bit or not, you know, just as a little memory or something, but like conscious meaning making, like fuck that. I don't know, I don't know, you know, like meaning making, we give it so much value, but like, God, untangling your thoughts about like some person, like, I mean, for me, I'm actually traumatized by my own meaning making. I am deeply traumatized by the spins that I have put on other people or myself or society. I'm like 100% traumatized by my own intellectual spins.
Well, that's, I mean, like I'm always trying to get away from all the ways that I would contrive my work.
Yeah.
That's really what the process is for me.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, yeah, it's usually a process of like undoing.
Yeah. Cool.
Or the other day we were talking about golf and how usually the better swing and the more connected shot is really a process of you like not getting in the way.
Yeah.
And trying to like, you know, grip it.
Is a beauty filter like a grip?
Yeah, it totally is. And because I feel like what I get in those moments is more of the person. I don't get the photograph. I get what led up to it.
Yeah. This obsession with and question about individuality. So for me, like a lot of it is like, are you just following this trend? Because that means that this isn't a new image for me. This is just a repetition of another image. And to me, that's a value judgment for my own experience of something that it's not as interesting to me. But obsession with newness is not like, newness isn't the be all end all either. And so like in each layer, it's like a value judgment of what you're looking for. Yeah. And what it represents. And so, you know, like untangling that too is I think we've concluded like we actually don't really mind beauty filters.
Yeah. Beautiful.
In conclusion, no judgment here.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually, there's not so, yeah, it's not so much as a judgment, it's just a
Wouldn't
fascination.
want to use them. Don't prefer them.
Yeah. We got off on a few different, spin and style. And I mean, all of these things are fantastic. I love adjusting levels. There's nothing wrong with any of this. Just a spectrum of how one might appreciate or just even see in different lights photography, which is the capture of lights. So it's like, it's cool.
If the quality of the light is not there, there's nothing I can do afterwards in the editing to fix it.
Yeah.
And that is like some kernel of like a truth or a constant. Yeah. I think, where it's like, you can pretend that the light was okay when you took that image because you like the image. And this is like this is my favorite profound thing about photography. Are you guys ready?
Yeah, yeah.
It's my favorite thing. It's like, it is the spiritual practice of photography to me, is, and actually of producing any form of art. You take an image, it looks great when you take it, and you love the memory of like, that was like a cool spot, like this bird was flying out of that tree and the blah blah blah. And then you get back, for me, I get back to the computer and I download it, and I have had to develop through a lot of internal suffering. I mean, not really actually, but just like a muscle that when I look at that image, I am not creating the memory of the image that I took through the viewfinder. I'm actually looking at whether that photo is actually good. And so many times it'll be like, yeah, that was a great shot. And I'll be like, and I'll look at the image, I'll be like, that was a great shot. And then I'll look at it again and I'll be like, that didn't translate. And just try actually being honest with yourself. Like, did it translate? And it's so easy to just be like, yeah, that was, the idea of that was cool. And then, you know, the fun side is sometimes like really random shots that you were like, that's not going to be that cool. If you look at it and you're like, I thought that wasn't going to be that cool, but actually, I actually do like this. And I think that a homogenized mainstream heteropatriarchal culture has made us think that we like and are attracted to very specific general things, types of beauty, ways of being. And from everyone I know that has like really explored that for themselves, each person likes different things depending on their gender or whatever. And it's not prescribed. And so like the act of personally, and I think that's also building your own spin, is really caring for being honest with yourself about what of your own work do you like looks good to you when you look at it, or like who do you like, or who were you told to like think is cool. And
I love what you just said. That's great.
It's my most profound point. I think we can all agree that going back to the 90s would overall be a pretty solid move.
I think so too. Absolutely.
Britney wouldn't be stuck in that conservatorship for all those years.
I think she got out now.
She's having a baby.
Oh, wow.
Congratulations,
Yeah.
Britney. Shout out.
I'm Britney, bitch.
I just remember being driven to school in like middle school and my mom singing along with "Hit Me, Baby, One More Time." Oh, baby. And I'm just thinking, having a moment of clarity and being like, wow, this.
I love that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, 90s were pretty fun.
They were.
Simpler times.
Seemingly simpler times.
Seemingly.
I think that like neoliberal politics was absolutely functioning in great force at the time. It's just we weren't as that from my political perspective, which is neoliberal. I just want to define neoliberalism just because I had an argument with my father the other day. I love my shout out to Dad, Kenneth, great man. You know, I was being the kind of belligerent daughter that was like, neoliberalism. We were shouting about economics or something. And he was like, you don't know anything. He didn't say that, but he didn't really know what I meant when I said neoliberalism. And I think a lot of people don't. Neoliberalism is just simply that politics are influenced and governed by transnational corporate interests more so than they are by more finite and geographically bounded things. And so anyway, neoliberalism was going very strong and produced quite intelligently and effectively by the US. At that time, we just didn't know it. And it was innocent. It was innocent. But you can't choose it once you know it. You can't choose to go back to ignorance once you know it. Or can we? I don't know.
That's a good question.
We could take our camera and build an ignorant
yeah.
reality as our spin.
It's so good to have you on the show. Honestly, I've like thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Good.
We had some fun.
We put our spin. We had some fun. I can't wait for you to see the review of these videos I made while you were gone.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's fun. When I'm editing, I'll have a little surprise.
Yeah.
You know? It's like Easter eggs.
Yeah, like Easter eggs. It is Easter.
Yeah.
Today. I don't really have much to say about that.
I don't either.
You know, the separation of church and state isn't like a real thing. That is a beauty filter for the U.S.
Right, yeah.
The U.S. is like the separation of church and state is in our Constitution, but we are a Christian country.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Man. All right, rock on. Cool. Hey, thanks so much for listening, you guys. And
wear sunscreen.
Yeah, don't forget. Bye now.
Bye now.